To better understand what is the continuing resolution, the CR, I enlisted the help of Phil Mattingly, who's in Bloomberg News' Washington bureau. So let me walk you through it. Every year, the Congress has to consider the budget of the federal government. The fiscal year goes through September 30th, so you have to have that budget approved. Not only that, you have to have then the appropriations process, so the spending plan approved, and then the money actually allotted to the various government departments and agencies, agriculture, defense, energy, just as several examples. If they can't come to agreement either on the budget or then on the appropriations process, that's when you can have a continuing resolution, which essentially locks in the same spending levels for a further period of time so the government doesn't get shut down. But Congress can't agree on the so-called CR, so that's why we have the shutdown. How did we get here? Let's look at the timeline of what events have brought us here. All the way back in August of 2011 is when the president signed the Budget Control Act. That is, he said, there has to be a super committee in Congress that sort of figures out what to do about the budget, how to avoid all of the arguing that's been going on. If it doesn't happen, you're going to have the so-called fiscal cliff, automatic spending cuts that go into place. Well, in September of 2012, the Congress passed a 6-month spending resolution. It didn't forestall the fiscal cliff, but it did in the meantime help the government not get shut down last year like it is this year. In January 2013, the president passed the American Taxpayer Relief Act, which pushed off sequestration, those mandatory spending cuts, and also locked in some tax changes for the American people. March 2013, that's when the sequestration happened, and that then brings us to now when you have the government shut down after the budget expired on September 30th. So what are the numbers we're looking at here? What is all of the argument about in Congress, between Congress and the White House, et cetera? Current spending levels, if the continuing resolution was approved, would be at $986 billion. Under the sequester, the spending was temporarily brought down to $967 billion. The House has proposed that we keep that spending level at $986 billion. Senate Democrats have pushed for a level that's a little higher, $1.06 trillion. But some Democrats have said, well, they would compromise and go back to 986. But it's the wrangling over these numbers that has caused the shutdown in Washington. And this is part of what is trying to be negotiated and agreed upon that keeps that shutdown right on going.